Hi and welcome. I'm so glad you joined us today. I am here with QHHT Level 3 practitioner Suzanne Spooner. She is in Des Moines, Iowa, and she did 2 sessions of Journeys into the Soul. The first episode is with Ed. It's episode 4. It's called Me Greeting Me. And the second episode is episode 18 with Rachel, Kingdom of Love. These were amazing sessions, and there was so much good stuff that came out of it. And we're going to get into it and talk all about it today. Suzanne, thanks for joining me.
Oh, thank you for inviting me, David.
This is so cool, the way we get together and have these sessions with people. People get to feel this visceral sense, this experience of being in these spaces. I know that I've had sessions myself, and feeling that is so much better than just having someone say, oh, you should do this and you should do that. But when you actually have this visceral experience and you're in this time in this place, it means so much. And one of the things we've been saying is the answers are within. There's all these different ways to find that and connecting people to their intuition. So kind of at the beginning, give a little presence of when someone comes in to see you and they're like not sure what to expect, you get them into a space of relaxation. We call it an induction. So kind of give people a little bit of insight of kind of how you get people into that space.
Well, it is fun because every session, I never know where they're going to go. I don't know what their issues are. I don't know what their questions are until we sit down and talk. But we begin just having a conversation. Again, as you said, everybody kind of comes in a little nervous, a little worried. They usually haven't done this before. They don't know what to expect. But we just sit and talk for a while, and that helps them to relax and understand a little bit about what this amazing experience into their soul is going to be like. It helps me get to know them a little bit better, because really one of my most important jobs is to ask the very best questions on their behalf to help them pull through as much information as possible. So I ask them to tell me about their life, and I get a little bit of understanding about that journey and their challenges that they've faced and the relationships that they've had. When we get that conversation complete, which usually takes a couple of hours, it's not a fast thing, then we get them comfortable I use a massage table in my office, and that's where we begin the story that helps them to relax very deeply into themselves, where that kind of quiets down that analytical left mind that has the doubt and the worry and the fear, so that we can dive deep into this right side of the brain, the part of us that always has all of our answers that we're never taught how to access or what it is. So it's just a beginning process, and that's what starts the rest of the hypnosis.
I've seen so many sessions where people just get into that relaxed space through the languaging, through the wording that you use. Tell people what it's like to get into that. I know I've heard you say it's like accessing a daydream or something like that. Give them a sense of what their conscious level is during this interaction.
To clear up any misconceptions, I can't make anybody do anything, which is good because we don't want anybody to control us. So all I am doing is using my voice and my words and my experience to help them go into a very deep state of relaxation or hypnosis. Same. I think there's a misconception about deep hypnosis that you're going to check out and something's going to be speaking through you, and you're just going to be counted up at the end, and boom, you've got all this information. But it isn't like that anymore. It used to be like that to a degree, and now it's really just this agreement with yourself that you're going to allow yourself to get relaxed enough that you can allow this flow of information to be spoken through you, coming from that right side of the brain. So it's just kind of like one of the best examples I have of what it's like to be in that state. And it will surprise everybody because we probably have all done this easily without understanding what we're doing. But it's like when you're having a conversation with somebody and they're having a heck of a hard time, and you'd love to give them really good advice, but you've never been in that situation. Perhaps you don't know what to say to help, but all of a sudden you open your mouth and just the most perfect advice comes out. and you'll get done and your friend will go, "Oh my gosh, David, you're so brilliant. How'd you know that's exactly what I need to do?" And you'll go, "I don't know. I mean, I don't know where that came from." And they can even say, "Can you repeat that? It was so good." And you'll say, "No, I don't even know what I just said." So, in that moment, wide awake and aware, not even trying, what you did to help this person was you quieted down that analytical left side of the mind that has the fear and the worry, and you freely spoke the stream of thought coming in from the right side in sessions, what we'll call the high self, the subconscious. That's tapping into that part of you that knows everything. So, if we can all do that in an awake and aware state without even trying, when you're with somebody who's helping guide you into that nice, deep, relaxed state and is there to ask questions and monitor, things that are happening in the session with what you're saying, what your body's doing, then it's really super easy. It's not hard at all. And I think once people understand that concept, that this is an easy process, that if we just quiet ourselves down, perhaps at home, and ask ourselves a question and trust the first thoughts or the words that come to mind, write them down, say them in a recorder, leave them for a while, come back and take a look at what it is, you'll be like a little, whoa, that was a really good answer. So we can do this ourselves, all of us, at any time. It's just helpful to have somebody guiding you through it and recording it.
Well, thanks for giving presence to that, because that's just so many people are like, oh, I'm afraid what's going to happen is, do I go somewhere? Do I forget? And no, you're there. You have recollection. And the best part is you give them a recording so they can listen to it later on, because there's a lot of these things that you don't remember all the details, but when you listen to yourself giving yourself advice, you're like, oh, that is really good advice, isn't it? You're getting it from your own subconscious.
Well, I think, is one of the greatest gifts of QHHT, because it's not me as a practitioner answering any questions, me doing any healing whatsoever. This is the client doing it. I'm just helping them access that part of them that has that ability. And by having the experience of a QHHT session and having that recording to refer to and refresh your mind with what you were tapping into, that can make life from that point forward so much easier, because you're in sessions, the high selves and I will have really great conversations about these topics. And they'll say, by having the experiencing and listening to the recording, it's like you're strengthening that muscle to that high self so that it becomes more of a natural flow to that part of you that knows everything, because they will always say, the high selves, that they're always available. They always want to help. But in Earth, we kind of have this really a bit of a challenging but gifted experience of having free will. And that part of us won't override the free will, because that's part of the reason we're here, is to learn to work with that part of ourselves.
A lot of this comes from the idea that we're spiritual beings having a human experience. And this is a way to capture a moment in during that session where you tap into that spirit being, that soul self. And yeah, we can solve some of these questions about what job I should be in, family or relationship. Man, there's also this ability to kind of tap in to that even deeper, ancient part of this internal self, that soul self, and really get that guidance in that direction. And it's such a beautiful practice. I'm so glad that there's professionals in the world such as yourself that are there to act as a guide, if you will, like a tour guide. Here, let me help you along your way. And then instead of telling them, you're allowing them to discover. And it's just so beautiful, the whole practice.
It really is, and as a practitioner, it's such a joy to watch it all unfold in front of my eyes. And I learn new things with every session and every client. So it's a very fulfilling role to have.
Well, let's get into episode 4 with Ed. Now, his episode was called Me Greeting Me, and he saw himself as a historical figure. And there was a meaning and a reason for seeing that. It came around to a self-love, that you're okay. And even if you've done something in life, you just made a decision with the information you had at the time. Give some presence to an experience where somebody sees themselves as a historical figure.
The historical figures are fascinating because we sometimes get a different story about their life, one that wasn't documented a particular way. And why that is because we're really seeing it from their point of view, their eyes. We also get this from people, just normal everyday people, maybe around historical figures, and you're seeing it from a perspective of somebody near to them, but not in their inner circle. So there's always these different perspectives that we get. The things that we read about in books, Ed's was fairly recent in history as Fatty Arbuckle in Hollywood. Things that are fairly recent in history are documented, but there's a perspective that's given through the person who is recording that information. So it may not be as true. I mean, I think like with Fatty, through the eyes of Ed, we really saw a lot of challenges and heartfelt difficulties in his life. And when you Google him on the internet, you see this very flamboyant figure that had this amazing journey through Hollywood and then this downfall, and but the beautiful part of Ed's experience as Fatty was the true work that he was challenged with in that life. And then again, how it ties into Ed's current life. It always does.
There was this beautiful component of him giving and receiving self-love in that paradigm. And he told Fatty he loved him. Fatty had this need to have this understanding that I made a mistake or I did something, I got wrongly accused. And Ed was able to apply that to his personal life. And no matter what comes up, people all the time are like, is it real? Was it real? But was he really that person? Probably, but regardless, the message that came through, that's what was real for Ed at that particular time.
That's one of the beautiful things I get to witness is the healing through lifetimes. And, we're kind of thinking in a linear fashion here, not always as it's explained to me in sessions, more in the everything's happening now type of situation, which is just a whole other conversation. But I mean, if you can think about, if say a soul is like an orange, there's lots of segments connected to the core. And so that segment that was Fatty Arbuckle and that segment that's Ed are always connected, but they are having different experiences because there's that soul wanted to experience each life. The beauty is that even though in a linear fashion, that lifetime of Fatty is complete, if you switch that into everything's all in the moment of now, Ed unexpectedly coming into that session did healing work on his aspect of Fatty that so desperately needed that. And in that beautiful kind of like figure 8 infinity symbol comes back to help Ed in this life with issues that he was working through.
There was also another aspect of his session where he was looking for specific guidance in his current life situation. He was in a job that he wasn't sure, I don't really think I want to be in this. And one of the most shocking points is his higher self. You go, so Ed has a question about, if he should be in his job, and he says he will die if he stays in it. He will die because it's too stressful. And I remember I was like, oh. And I'm quietly sitting in the back of the room taking notes. One thing I want people to know is we don't fabricate or produce any portion of these sessions. They're real people with real sessions. I just quietly sit in the back and observe, in which I'm honored to be able to be in that present state. But wow, I viscerally felt that. And I saw your reaction. You were like, oh, So it was a clear indicator that you need to move in a different direction. The space you're in isn't healthy for you. And his subconscious, his higher self, was giving him that direct information. Kind of speak to that point, how people receive these messages.
Yeah, one thing that I will tell my clients before we start the hypnosis portion is one of the beautiful things in a session is, especially as we're getting to that question and answer part, that that they want to know more about their life, the lists that they come in with of questions, is they're going to hear themselves say things that they know. You know, and I tell them that's not them making it up, it's confirmation. They're on the right track, they're doing the right thing, and this beautiful part of them, this high self, subconscious, is confirming that they're doing the right thing. And that's great, that's wonderful. But in every session, maybe once, maybe many times, they will hear things that they weren't expecting. And to me, that's gold. The high self is giving them information that the left side of their brain had no access to or understanding of. And if you have this new information, then you have clarity on how to go on your path with that answer. And every once in a while, it's a big one like that. And I'm not expecting that either. So yeah, I think you saw the surprise and, oh heck, this is something that we need to dive deeper into. And I'm quite certain that Ed, on a conscious level, wasn't aware that answer.
Yeah, no,
But I love that about that part of us that knows everything, because it knows how to deliver the information in the way that the client needs to hear. And sometimes it has to be that blunt in order for them to go, oh, wow, okay, I have to make that change. There's only been a few times in my 12 plus years of doing this where it's been that direct about life and death. It's always been right. And it's usually, like Ed, it's pushing them in directions that they weren't probably comfortable with making. It's like you can suffer through a bad job, even though you moan and groan about it and you hate about it as you're driving to work each day. But when something is said like that, it's like making the change.
Yeah, there's specific information that you're able to get at that moment in time. And I know I've talked to Ed since then. I know he has moved into a different position. Life has changed for him, and I think it's for the positive. He's really excited about the new space he is in. One of the things that I was so profoundly impacted by was he says, I'm looking in the rearview mirror. I'm always looking behind me. It's as if I'm in a car going forward, but I'm always looking in the rearview mirror. And his higher self says, break off the rearview mirror. And I was,
Right.
again, I was like, wow, that is very firm and very specific and very direct.
Yeah, again, that's how he needed to hear the information to understand the impact of, sometimes, the sessions are very, light and airy fairy and, so sweet and peaceful. And that's what that client needs for different reasons. But yeah, Ed, it was a little bit of like a drill sergeant.
Yeah. Another profound thing about the QHHT practice is there's a body scan, and the body has the ability to give you information. And there was a knee issue that he had, and he found out why he had a knee issue, and then he had some healing occur. He was like, yeah, I've got a knee and it's kind of holding me back from doing things. And he was kicking a bag, kind of trying to do some karate. And he was trying to be in a position of being able to do something and complete the training, but he couldn't do it. And he was equating this karate thing with his degree, his PhD, that he just didn't quite complete. And there was this wonderful metaphor, and the body was holding pain. And I love how Dolores Cannon has said, our body is a message center and the pain is the messages. So in this process, you do a scan and you say, well, can you heal that? And he's like, oh, yeah, we can heal it. Well, go ahead and do so. So give some presence to that whole body healing, scan, higher self, subconscious process for people.
It is so amazing when you look at it from that point of view. What we find in these sessions as we're scanning the body, I love, they always come in with, well, they almost always come in with a list of questions about their body, or things aren't working well, or there's disease or discomfort. But before I start in on that list that they've written up, I like to ask the high self to start scanning first, because usually it will find things that the client didn't know about or didn't think to mention to me or didn't write down. And it comes at that issue, or all of the issues actually, from its own unique perspective. So when we're scanning the body, it'll zero in on places that needs repair and healing. But what we found in this work is that it's our thoughts, beliefs, and experiences that we've looped in our mind over time, sometimes so subconsciously, we're not even aware of it, that affect different parts of the body and break them down and cause disruption. So when we're scanning the body and we find an area that needs some help, like Ed's knee, we're going to find the root reason behind that issue. And sometimes that's very enlightening and it's nothing that they had thought about before. Sometimes, as we're doing that, then we'll find out what they've learned from having that issue, because we all learn from our stuff. We all create our issues because we're just energy in these dense forms. We all create it. If we all create it, then we can all heal it. I mean, it makes perfect sense. There's balance. And so we're finding out things like what they've learned from having that issue. That is also very enlightening. If we create it, we can heal it. So energetically, that part of us knows how to go in there and do it. And it is amazing to watch. And I don't care if it's stage 4 cancer or if it's a sprained toe. Everything is capable of being healed if it's in their highest and best interest. It almost always is. It's our thoughts and beliefs and experiences that got them into that situation to begin with. And so they need new thoughts, beliefs, and understandings to move forward, to not recreate the issues. Because what I found in this work is our bodies are neutral to those thoughts, beliefs, and experiences. And so if we have this amazing session and everything gets healed and they feel great afterwards, if they do what's human and they go back to their own old thoughts, beliefs, and experiences, their neutral body will go, oh, okay, we're not done with that yet. Let's recreate the issue. And the pain comes back and the situation is still there. But if they can take what they gave themselves in their session, and this is why listening to the recording is so important, because it ingrains that in the mind, and they do the new ways of thinking, doing, believing that they gave themselves, then there's no reason for the body to hold on to that. And their body, neutral body, will say, oh, okay, we're done with that old stuff. Now we're going to do it this way. And this way is so much more comfortable and nicer. So that's what we get into with the healing. It's a completely different way of looking at it from modern medicine.
Yeah, Julia Cannon wrote a book called Soul Speak, and it gives a lot of information about that. It's a great resource if someone's listening to this and you're like wanting to know more about, well, I have a pain and what does this mean? There's a great book that you can get, a great resource. I've enjoyed my copy. I've worn out trying to figure out, I have neck pain. Oh, I'm being a pain in the neck. There'll just be things like that that occur.
Right. Yeah, I mean, what Dolores found, and is 1000% true, is our bodies speak a very literal language. And so if you can understand what those messages are, you can understand what's going on in your life that needs to get changed or corrected. Your body's trying to bring attention for your high self to things that aren't working out well for you. And that's why a body goes into disrepair.
So I loved Ed's session. For people that have seen it and wanted to have some follow-up information, I just wanted to have a few of these points to talk about and really give shed some light on that. He had clarity. We did his 2-week follow-up and he was already putting things in motion. His life did move forward. He is in creating new things in his life. I did speak with Ed, and he says, I don't really want to do a follow-up conversation publicly because there's things privately in his life he wanted to hold private. And I said, of course. And so we didn't do a follow-up with him. I did speak with Rachel. She did a follow-up conversation, bonus content. That's available on the website. And her session was Kingdom of Love, and it was so wonderful. It's so Rachel. She was sitting on a rose quartz throne, and she's uncomfortable, but she didn't want to say anything. I kind of want a pillow, and she was learning, hey, it's okay to ask for what you need. Completely different. There were things in her session that she gives presence to. She talks about the angelic realm and being connected to it, and give some presence for the work she does in the world. her career. She wants to help people, and she said her higher self, they gave her the information. She's not going to like this, but she needs to be seen, and she needs to answer emails and answer phone calls. And sometimes people they feel kind of hidden and invisible. And she was told, hey, get out there, give your work to the world. And it's such a beautiful way that the QHHT session can be used for helping someone with their finances, their career, their business, their world. Give some presence to how that helps people.
Yeah, well, Rachel is such a fun one because I mean, she's a big personality and she's already in the world of spirituality and such a gifted human being with her talents. And I've enjoyed them. I've been her client. She's been my client. So, that's always really fun. But I think, the messages that she was getting are universal to a lot of us that, you need to not be small. You need to do what you're here to do. And I think the clarity that she got in her session, because she's just, she just can't hold back. She has to, it's just in her nature to give. And it was such a blessing to watch herself give to herself. And I think she's probably a wonderful conduit for her clients to help them see their true potential. And she got to see that for herself. And that analogy, I love the analogies that the high selves give. But pretty special to be sitting on a flippin' rose quartz throne, but then just like my butt's cold and I like this isn't, as cozy as I'd like it to be. And then the analogy that she gave herself that she can always ask for what she needs. And I think especially women are pretty crappy at doing that. We just don't do that because it's just not built into our system. We're not enforced to know that that's something to do from very little growing up. And I think that was a beautiful way for all of us to learn that it's good to ask for what you need. I mean, not everybody outside of you knows what you're lacking. It's kind of like putting your oxygen mask on an airplane before you help others. I mean, you've got to help yourself to fully graciously help others.
Yeah, I loved the paradigm that you had a couple that they each wanted to do their individual sessions. There was a lot of private things that we certainly didn't want to make public between them. They were all really beautiful messages, but they were so personal to them. But it really wove together. Rachel saw Ed, and Ed saw Rachel in each of their sessions, and they were very complimentary sessions, and they didn't communicate beforehand. They both had their sessions without talking about them. I was blown away by the complementary lessons that each of them had. And in Rachel's session that we did make public was you can each have your own career path, your own business, and you don't have to be like this together. You can walk together like this. And she has this beautiful example of the pinkies being together. And she's like, you don't have to smother, but you can be like this. And I
Right.
thought that was such a beautiful lesson for couples to enjoy each other having their own pathway and enjoy your partner having a business and supporting them doing their pathway in their career. Tell me about navigating through that.
I seem to see a lot of couples, so or friends, or people that come one day after another to experience a QHHT session together. So I get this interesting viewpoint from different perspectives of a relationship. As far as I am concerned, when I'm in a when I'm in a session with a client, I am 100% on their beliefs and understandings about their life and their experiences. So I don't, I never go, well, Ed said, that, this was a problem. I don't ever do that. It's each one is so individual, but their lives are shared. And with a couple, it's a beautiful thing to see how there's their individuality that is so base and important, but there's this merging of their souls together, and there's value and lessons to be learned in those experiences. And then it's why are we together? Why did we choose each other? And what do we learn from one another? I love to ask that question with partners or, parents about children and children about their parents, because the things that they learn from one another isn't always quite so obvious in a day-to-day life. And in that deep space of all knowing, it is relayed in a way that sometimes is surprising and comforting. So it's again, it's usually an unexpected connection, understanding, and it's a great gift to ask the questions to help them understand those relationships much more deeply.
Yeah, yeah. Relationships are a very common question that people have. They'll seek a session, career, very common. And then, why am I here? What's my purpose? Those are just such these profound, weighty things that we as humans are, like, oh, what's going on? I don't understand. And so
Right.
I do love that there's so much information available through this practice.
Gosh, it's just being human. I'm not dogging anybody, but humans have a very part of our easy role is victimhood. And a lot of times, as I'm talking to people about their lives, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm a good person, but then this happened, and then I tried so hard, but my family did this, and I work really hard, but my work is like that, and my wife doesn't understand me. There's just so much, like, and it's coming from an honest place. They just don't understand why everything has had to be so tragic and so hard. The beautiful part about the sessions as it unfolds and we ask these questions and receive these answers is there's a very profound knowing that they asked for this experience and this is why. And they weren't victims, they were never victims. And I think that's probably one of the greatest gifts of a QHHT session is showing themselves from this higher perspective that they carry, that they are not victims and they are in control of so much more than what they think they are. And in the most difficult and hard experiences, they've learned so much about themselves.
That is one of the best lessons that I've learned in my spiritual path is I'm not a victim. I'm not a victim. I'm not a victim. And I
Yeah.
was given a religious paradigm that said you are a victim. You came here. You're not even worthy to be with the divine. You have to do something to be accepted. That's not the soul journey. The soul journey is you come here to experience, explore, and expand. And these things that you feel victimized by, the secret is you probably pre-planned that before you came down and back in the soul realm. And a lot of the times you'll make an agreement with another soul and you'll say, look, I need you to do something. I need you to be a mom. I need you to be an alcoholic. I need you to shame me and tell me I'm not worthy. And the mom's like, I can't do that. Or the other soul that is going to play that. I can't do that. I love you too much. I need you to do this. And they're like, okay, I love you so much. I'm willing to play that character. That is so powerful.
I've had actually, oh my gosh, that's so funny that you bring this up. I have had sessions where they're in their planning session before they came into the current life, right? And it is amazing. I mean, because up there, I say up there, but everybody is on the same team. There's unconditional love and understanding. And of course, like with Ed and Rachel, they fulfilled roles, brother and sister and husband and wife, many different ways to learn about each other and their connection together, as we, I think, all do. They all love each other unconditionally. There's nothing other than that. But one person will say, okay, I'll be the bad guy, and I'll be the person that betrays you. And it's like high fives all around, like, yeah, 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 you can do that. We're just actors, in this play. And I'll be the good guy. I'll be the one that comes and saves you. And you'll be like, yes, you'll be perfect at that. And then we get into the life and we're like, holy hell, what just happened? And why'd you do that to me? And that's horrible. And, then we go into the victim mode thing, right? But at the end of the day, they're the ones that have been the hardest on us because we're in this realm on earth. It's not the same everywhere else. We're learning from those experiences and we're on a kind of on a fast track of that learning through this duality experience that we've agreed to be a part of. So there really are no bad guys. There's no good guys. And I think when you can wrap your head around that, it lightens up everything. It's like, well, that stunk, but okay, so, this is what I'm supposed to learn, and I'm going to learn it so I can move past it instead of being in the middle of recreating the difficult challenges over and over again. It's a huge paradigm shift when you can understand that.
Absolutely. Thanks for giving presence to that because if you can then say, okay, this sucky thing in my life, what did my soul come here to learn from this experience? What is it that I want to gain and how can I grow out of this into a new space? If you can take that approach, you go, huh, okay. Then you're not looking at yourself as a victim. You're not looking as another person as the villain. I hate that person. They hurt me so bad. They did hurt you so bad, and it's real. And yes, I agree. And what was the lesson there? What did you want to have as an experience? That is so valuable for people.
Well, and I remember reading somewhere once that, you can kind of look like this. Everybody that's been in your life, good, bad, and indifferent, are part of your tribe. And if everything stayed comfortable all the time, you wouldn't grow because it feels good. I mean, you're just fine. You're mellow and everything's easy and wonderful, but that's not Earth. And so it's the people that cast us aside or treat us horribly, that make us, eventually go, what the heck? Like, I'm worth more than this, and I'm not going to put up with this anymore. And that puts you on a whole different trajectory of learning and experience and growth. But if you wouldn't have that agitator there, you wouldn't have taken that chance to go try a new adventure, in your life. And so you really have to thank the agitators in your life because they are the instigators of change in your life that needed to happen. And they still stink, and you don't have to be in their day to day anymore if you don't want to be. That's your choice. But where would you have been if everything would have been, a piece of cake?
Yeah.
Probably, it would have been okay. But it's kind of like when I take people through lifetimes, and it's just kind of not a lot going on. It's just, I've got a family, I've got a job, I get older, I die. If their life is perfect, if there's no agitation, and it's like in my sessions, somebody has just a normal life. There's not a lot of issues that they have to work for. They have a nice marriage, they have a nice family, they have a good job. They, eventually they pass over. And, sometimes what I find, which is fascinating, is they're showing that life of ease, normalcy, nothing ruffling the waters too much, because in this life it's been very chaotic and very challenging and very hard. And when I get to their high self and I ask a question, why did you show them that life? There wasn't a lot going on there, it seemed. And they'll go, oh, they need to know that not every life is like this one. This one has a lot of lessons to learn, and they agreed to it. This is what they wanted. But sometimes they'll pick the snowball life, where it's just kind of relaxed and laid back, and everything's in alignment.
Yeah.
And that's okay too. We need those breaks. It's like taking a timeout life.
I love that. Thanks for giving that presence because there's so many things that occur. Some of us feel like we picked this life on advanced expert hard mode, most challenging possibly, go to 11 out of 10, So now I do want you as the audience viewer, I want you to know that Suzanne was recently on Alex Ferrari's podcast, Next Level Soul. I want you to go watch that. It was a great conversation. And Suzanne, you share about your personal journey. Talk about, people go, oh, Suzanne, she must have an easy life. She's, does her practice, nothing bad ever happens to her. And you share your personal story with your father. And I loved the idea of creation when you're in heaven. When my son passed away 2 years ago, at my funeral service for my son, someone made the comment, I had a pack of Skittles, and I said, whenever I eat Skittles, I remember he's over the rainbow. And someone made a comment, he might be over the rainbow, but he's not in heaven. And that was
Oh,
that earth mythology, that religious mindset that people go to hell when they do bad things. And I know that that was a narrative you had shared, someone had mentioned to you. So
yeah.
we go through these things in life. You've already told the story. It's a wonderful story. Go watch the podcast. Just give a little light to that from your personal experience that you've had.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry for you too that happened. I think, as you were saying that, I'm like, maybe you and I needed that, jolt upside the face to go, that's not true, right? But I mean, that both of us shared that at like the ultimate lowest time in our life. I was at my funeral with a visitation for my father, and who had taken his life. I was young. I had I think a 4-month-old baby, my very first. It was just the worst. But infinite love for him. It's like I know he tried his best, and I can't imagine being in that headspace, but I just loved him so much. So I mean, there's no anger on my part. I just love him so much. And I remember it was his high school buddy who came up to me and said, a very religious man, and so, I just want you to know, your dad's in hell for taking his life. And I'm just wondering why, like, blink, blink, but like, what? Like, who says that? And like, what am I supposed to say back to that? And, it just obviously it left an impression.
Yeah.
But, the grace
I
I
think all you
had.
can do is go like this.
Yeah. Thank you. That's what I needed to hear. Thanks so much.
Yeah.
But yeah. But the grace that I had was many years later, and knowing that the God that I believed in is an all loving God. And from childhood, I was like, I wasn't buying in on the hell thing. I just, that didn't correlate with an all loving God. So there's something that I couldn't put my finger on as a child that just went, no, not going there. Thank you. And so I already had that supporting me. But years later, I had developed a process of channeling. And my dad is the one that, slid into home base really fast. He was my second message, when I didn't even know what was going on. And so, once I grasped that I was able to connect with him again, I started asking questions. And that, of course, that was the one that was really rattling back there. I just loved him so much. And I prayed that he did not have any suffering. He was suffering enough in real life, in order to think that his answer was to take his life, obviously. And he explained that so beautifully to me that he created a hell and experienced that. He was a good dad, and it took a little, gnawing at him to, give me the whole story. I think he gave it to me in pieces so that I could be ready for it. And as the father, he gave me that information that he had created his hell. And I think with Alex, he brought up the great analogy of what dreams may come with Robin Williams. And yes, it did feel kind of like that description. And he said, as my dad, he said, honey, I didn't stay there very long. And to me, I'm getting images and feelings as I'm getting these messages. And what he was showing me and feeling was, it was like a blink of an eye. Don't think I hung out there for a long time. And then I went to this park, he said, and it was like a beautiful place in nature, and he rested. And I hear that in sessions so often, especially after challenging lives, they need a resting space, just to get their soul back into alignment. Those lessons can be jarring and damaging on a soul, and they go back and they rest. And then he said, he sat and talked with God about his life, and then he created his heaven. And I think that was the first time I'd had that conversation about creating your own heaven. And then later, in not long, I was having messages from my brother-in-law, Mike, who had passed from cancer, and he gave me this. I'm like, "Do you create your heaven?" And I'm like, is this just like a dad thing, or is this like a you thing too? And he's like, "We all create our heaven." And he gave me the best advice of all: is think about, while you're in your life, what you want your heaven to be like, because it'll make the process even that much easier. And it was beautiful.
Wow, that is so good. In 2015, I was in that narrative of you get one life and there's a judgment. And someone gave me a suggestion and said, what if heaven and hell aren't places to go? They're not destinations, but what if they're states of consciousness? And what if you can create heaven and hell in your own reality here and now and in the afterlife? And I went, wow, I never thought about that. And that led me on my journey. I started studying near-death experiences, and I started studying hypnotherapy, and I started studying, well, what happens when we die? And, that, I think, if there's something to be taken away from anything that we do in this life, is that you don't have to fear the afterlife. You're actually going home. You're like, and every time somebody's in a QHHT session and they experience a lifetime and they leave that body and they go into the life between lives, into that afterlife space, they're like, oh, I'm home. Oh, I'm with my soulmates, my people I love, my tribe. It's always like that. So beautiful.
It is, and I think, gosh, sometimes they'll describe that as, this is, we are so zoned in on this life, and this physical body and these surroundings, and that we don't realize, it's potentially all an illusion, which is a whole other can of worms, a simulation, lots of things. And so it's, as a practitioner, it's such a cool thing to sit and listen to so many people's descriptions of that afterlife and in between lives. I'm always in my head categorizing these experiences and finding similarities and differences and to get, because I'm curious. I want to understand what that's like. And actually, I'll tell you this. This is really funny. I've never shared this because it's such a goofy, dumb story. But I had a dream that I had died. Now I thought, wait, hey, I thought we don't have dreams that we die, right? And I'm like, okay, well, it's kind of going on with it. And I was in this really black space, and kind of like space, but all black. And my clients sometimes will go to that. I'm like, oh man, I'm in the black. Okay, cool. I'll just figure it out. And pretty soon, like, it was like a being like zoomed past me, but it's a cartoon. And I'm like, a cartoon? Like, no, I don't want like the afterlife to be like a flipping cartoon. And I was just giggling. I'm like, well, hell, that's not what I thought this was going to be like. I don't know what that was. Maybe that's what it is. But I think more likely my high self was having a little giggle with me to show
Yeah.
me.
I love that you get to the afterlife and that heaven space, and you're like, wait, everything's a cartoon? You're a character.
Like,
Oh,
redo, let's go back, let's recreate.
yeah. So as you come into this practice, you're doing this work, you're hearing themes, you're hearing people having commonalities. What is your sense of, like, spiritually, where are souls progressing? There's a lot of talk in spiritual circles about going to 5D and a new earth. And, I think that's probably metaphorical about this conscious level. Some people are like, we're going to go to a new planet. And I don't necessarily think that's what's going to happen, but what are the themes that you're seeing in spirituality right now?
Well, so many people will have a question about that, about where we're at with the shift and what's going to be like, as we make it through. I mean, right now things are looking very chaotic and a little messed up on the planet. But what they'll say in sessions about that in progression to 5D, we'll call it, is that it's all necessary. We're all creating it. Again, no victims. We need the chaos in order to take a look at things and reveal things as they really are. And probably the most reassuring thing that they'll say in sessions is that we're right on track. We're exactly where we're supposed to be as a species, as humanity, as a planet. So the chaos is as planned. But they'll say that we're actually, okay, this comes from a book that I'm writing with a client, and it's called The Designer of Our Reality Simulations. And she has this very high perspective as this designer of the reality simulations of what we're seeing. And she'll say what they're doing on this very high level is they're overlaying the 5D Earth on top of the 3D Earth to see how we all handle it. And they'll pull it back again, and they'll work on things. They call them the engineers. Will be working on things within our reality to see, make it an easier, better situation. So I think we're starting especially those of us that are aware, are starting to see some of that 5D overlay. And you'll see it as a moment of great bliss, or all of a sudden a deep understanding of a situation in your life, forgiveness of those who have harmed you. The more we focus on that and we're like, oh, yeah, that's what that feels like. That's what it's a feeling. I think it's more that than, waking up one morning and everything's changed. And I think we're in control of where we're at on that path of 3D, 4D, 5D. I think our dreams are a wonderful way to catapult us back and forth between those experiences. And, maybe we're more aware of our dreams, or we're more lucid within our dreams. So I think this time on the planet is very special. They say that in sessions all the time. If you're here for a reason. And if you're awake and can be delving into the possibilities of this other realm, these other dimensions, and place your imagination, your creativity into having those experiences, they're going to be there for you. I mean, it's not like, the high self isn't this part of us that you can only access in a QHHT session. It's always with you. It always wants to help. QHHT is a tool. Meditation is a tool. Channeling is a tool to get yourself more in touch with that part of you, so that you can let that be the driver of your life, instead of the fear and the worry of how we have been in the past. That's where we're at right now.
There were several episodes that people touched on that. Episode 19, it's called "The Light Will Win the Fight," and that client had this fear just watching the news, and with all of the outrage and the fear that's in the news, she was just always like, oh, she was stressed out. And in her session, her guides are telling her, don't worry about it. The light will win the fight. You're fine. She's like, oh. So she comes away with that session going, oh, well, I had the session to find out what I should do because the world's, and they're just like, no, you're good. Anyway, here's some other things you need to work on. She was like, oh, it wasn't even a big deal to the guides. They're like, no, you're right on track. You're doing fine.
And look at that paradigm shift that client had, from beginning of the day to the end of the day. I mean, and then of course it's after, it's in the session, it's like we're creating this great proverbial golden onion, and it's collecting of all the information to create the onion. And it's, sometimes I always giggle at this part. I'll count a client out and they'll look at me and they'll go, I totally get it. And I'll go, you totally don't. But you did great. And it's after you walk out of my office and you listen to the recording and you ponder and you think about it, that's when you start peeling those layers of the onion. And that's why a session is so beautiful, because it can take a whole lifetime to fully, truly understand what you gave yourself in that session. But irregardless, it's not the point of getting to that end marker of understanding it. It's the depth and the knowledge that helps you along the way that you wouldn't have had otherwise.
A lot of people that have watched the series are QHHT practitioners, and maybe they're just getting started. I've received messages from people that said, after watching this, I think that's my life's calling, and I need to have training also. There are these different levels where you get the training. There's level 1, there's a level 2, and then there's level 3. I went to a seminar and somebody asked Julia Cannon, well, do I learn more in 2 and 3? She says, you build upon what you learn in 1. So you get everything in 1, but by the time you get to 2 and 3, you're given additional training and guidance. And I know you're a teacher and a trainer. Give some presence for someone who's considering this as their life's work or something to help complement how they're here to help people.
Well, I always say, taking level 1 was one of the best life choices I've ever made. And that was true. Everything that you need to know to be a great practitioner, you learn in level 1. Dolores was such a master of putting this process together in a way that it looks easy. It is to a great degree, but like Julia says, there's a lot of moving parts and pieces to this easy process. And so you receive everything that you need in that level 1. It's doable. I mean, my first session that I did in class didn't go so well. I thought I was the big loser. I couldn't do this. I hit the wrong button. I have to back away. But then I came back and did a session with my best friend, my second session, and it was jaw dropping, amazing, absolutely astounding. I love the level one interns, the very, they just are out of the class, they're just starting to practice because they're very pure to the process from what they've just learned with Dolores. What we find then as we build experience is that there's these beautiful little nuances to the process, and everybody's lifetimes can be so unique and different. So what do you do in this scenario and what do you do in that scenario? Well, you have to have the experience first to learn what would you have done differently, or what went really, really well with that. And so by the time you get to level 3, you've had, I think, 125 sessions under your belt. So you have some of that experience. Now, what we find is when we get to level 3, most of them have gotten way off track with the initial teaching. And so it's really just bringing them back to level 1, but now they have this wealth of experience from all these sessions. And we really fine tune in level 3 ad nauseum. When I had my evaluation with Dolores, there's just 6 of us. I was trying to put my big girl pants on. I was trying not to cry because I really, I think all of 6 of us came into that experience thinking, we're pretty hot stuff. We got picked to do this, and we all stunk. We all had gotten way off track. I'm like, I'll be the honorary queen of that. And when I was listening to their critiques, I thought, oh, those are, there's such tiny little details that can't do anything. And man, they're so picky. But when I got over my ego and I went back and changed my sessions in the way that they had recommended, I cannot believe the depth and the beauty of the sessions I was getting in relation to before that evaluation. So that's what level 3 is. So everybody can have great sessions with any level practitioner. To go with a level 1 intern, I think, is a wonderful thing because those sessions are free or at a free will offering, and you're giving the gift of experience to the practitioner. The practitioner is getting you in much faster than you can get in with somebody like me, or for no money, or unless you want to give a little bit to them, which is very kind. And you can have a dynamic session with them. So it's I guess what you resonate with.
Yeah, I know you're a robust practitioner. I know that there's significant time if someone wants to schedule with you. I also know that you put a lot of content out there and you're really helping to educate people about the whole QHHT world and the soul journey in general. Give some presence to how people can find out more information about you and the work that you do in the world.
Thank you. Yes, my sessions are out about 3.5 years at this point. Now, let me share just a little bit about it because that is such a funny thing. I'll have clients come in and literally a question on their list is, why did I have to wait this long for the session? And oh gosh, I'm sorry, but that's where the schedule was at. But the high selves will say very consistently, no, this was meant to be at this time. This is their day. They needed to have this experience and that experience in their life happen in order for us to give them the information that was going to be most truly beneficial. So when I see people sign up, I'm like, wow, I wonder what's going to happen, for you between now and then, because it had to happen that way. But if people are feeling called to doing it really quick, then go to a level 1 practitioner, a level 2 practitioner, and get in sooner and see what you can find out. Follow your gut is the key thing there. So early on, and probably earlier than I should have, because I think my technique was greatly refined, I started putting clips out on YouTube with permission from my clients. And I love to do that because it was showing all these different experiences that people had. And they had health issues, they had life issues that other people had and could relate to. And what I found, maybe not as an initial intention, but what I found through feedback was it was helping other people. So somebody's session with similar situations was helping heal other people themselves, or helping them have a higher perspective on what was going on in their life. And so I love that. So when I'm in a session, I kind of get a ding of, oh, this would be a good one to put out. And if that's the case, I'll start switching things around. I won't say they're their names. I'll start saying he and him, and things like that. And then and my questions, I'm always sticking to their questions. But one thing that I think I'm really good at is I ask very good questions based off of their answers. So I'm always trying to get as deep of profound information for them as possible. Then that seems to resonate with the listeners as well. So it's been a great joy. And I'm very grateful for my clients who allow me to put those sessions out so they can listen on my YouTube channel to those. My website is just my name, SuzanneSpooner.com, and you can sign up for my channeling class there. You can sign up to take a session there. Sarah Breaston Cosme and I have recently started doing trips to Egypt that are amazing to help people find their past lives and to connect into the great collective consciousness there. And so they can find the links there to go to the Egypt trips to sign up.
Talk about your TAUK talk methodology that you teach people.
So that is that channeling process that came through to me. My dad helped out with. It's the Art of Universal Knowing, or the acronym is TAUK Talk, which is funny because you're kind of talking, but to other realms and other dimensions. And it's a very easy process. The class is inexpensive. $22 US. And I walk people through how you can use the tools of a pendulum and a chart to receive messages, just like I did back in, I think it happened in 2008 or 2009. And how to, always be connecting into those higher levels of knowledge and love, not the low level stuff. So it seems to work. There's been thousands of people that have taken the class over the years, and there's a forum where people can ask questions once they sign up for the class, and I am on there answering questions there as well. And it's been fun. It's been what I thought was just like this final reconnection with my dad has turned into helping others reconnect with their loved ones, God, angels, aspects of themselves or high self. I talk to my pets, both living and those that have passed. And I did that just yesterday. I was snowed in, and I thought, well, I'll just, I'll get my talk board out, and I checked in with our sweet dog Pippa that passed away a year ago, and just received the most beautiful message about her soul and where she's at right now and what she's learning. And it's a great joy to know that we all have the ability to tap into that and find our answers for ourselves.
Beautiful. So we are on this linear time path from birth to death. And along that time path, we have all these points that we hit. And then there's the opportunities of free will to go off of those pathways. You've been through many experiences in life. You're probably working in the field that your soul designed for you. How do you feel your soul journey is going at this moment in time?
It's a great question. Wow, I've never thought about that. I feel like I'm on track. I feel like I'm in one of the happiest places of my life. I'm always learning. I'm always curious. But I've like you mentioned before, I mean, with my father, with a divorce, challenges with children from time to time, I've had some rough spots. I'm in the midst of some of those. But again, because of what I do, I have a great grace of not beating myself up for it and trying to see the bigger picture of things and not pulling myself into victimhood. So I am very grateful for the experiences that have given me this opportunity in my current time and moving forward. And, it also, I think, gives me a deep, profound gratitude for the things in my life that give me such instant ultimate joy, like my grandchildren and the loved ones that I have close to me, and connections with friends like you, and having these conversations. I mean, there's so much good in my life, and I'm up for the challenges of the things that I've created to learn from. And although it doesn't always feel so good in the heart, I can step back and take that perspective of I've created this to learn from, and things are not so permanent in this linear time frame. And I'll take ease with that.
Awesome. Suzanne, I'm so grateful that we got to film Des Moines, Iowa. It gets very cold in the wintertime. I know that when we're filming this particular episode today, I know that you're in a space where it's very cold and very snowy. People travel to you and there's issues with all of that. I mean, how do you like Des Moines? Tell me about that.
Okay, well, today currently the wind chill is minus 45. So it's awful.
Yeah.
But there's beauty in it too. I don't know how I got planted in Iowa. I am like such a Florida person or Hawaii, like this is I don't know how this happened. This must have been for a plan. Yeah. So, Des Moines is actually it's a really interesting space because it's center of the country. It's the heartland, and it very much is a heart-centered space. So Des Moines is like a small little city, a very large small town. You can take it either way, and you can move easily through it. And there's space between buildings, and space between people and cars, and I think that gives people breathing rooms. And there really are quite a few people in this area that are focused on the heart. And I call it like a mini Sedona. You just have to kind of look and know where you're looking for these people to be at. But it's a safe place. It's easy to, people don't usually lock doors here because we don't have a lot of those issues around. I'm out in the country, so right now I'm looking at some sheep and some goats that my neighbor just added to their collection. So it's easy, it's light, and I love traveling. I love getting out. I love going to warmer places when it's cold here. In the end, it's been a wonderful place to live and to grow my children. And we have all four seasons. So if you're into winter, unlike me, then you get the whole shebang. Mr. Arizona, where it's
Awesome.
dreadfully
Well,
cold at 60 degrees.
yeah. Before we close out for today, you've shared so much about victimhood and don't be a victim and be a creator of your life. If there's one thing you want to make sure people understand from your work in the world and you leave us with today, what would that be?
That we all do create our reality, and what we focus on is what we create. So be mindful of that and focus on the things that you want to have and the people that you want to have near you and experiences that benefit you in your highest and best way, and they come.
Well, thank you so much for being part of Journeys into the Soul. And to you, my friend, I say namaste.
Namaste.